In my last video, I made the claim and I backed it up that modular bees absolutely changed the game as far as what resource production method was the best in all the mods 10. Well, that was on version 4.12. 4.13 and 4.14 have been released, and boy, let me tell you, did modular bees take a hit. Like, modular bees got nerfed so hard, it kind of makes you wonder if they regretted putting it in the pack in the first place. But before I get any further into this, I genuinely want to know your thoughts. For those of you who are already aware with how the nerfs have affected modular bees, I'm curious whether you in particular think that the All the Mods team went too far on this one. And I'm curious because I kind of think that. I feel like they gave us something that was really cool for one version and then instantly took it away and made it incredibly difficult to use. Now, don't get me wrong, modular bees can still be incredibly strong. It's just way more expensive to set up and way more expensive to run consistently. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the changes they made to modular bees, the big part of these beehives that I missed in the last video. We're going to look at the new production rates of the beehives that I built in the last video versus the simulated hydroponic beds. And then finally, we're going to walk through what I believe is the new best modular bee build, as well as how to set that up and how to run it consistently, entirely automated using SFM. I hope you enjoy the video. I'm very excited for it. Let's get into it. I'll send you back to the video in just a second, but I wanted to take a chance to tell you about one of the best supporters of the channel, BerryByte. If you've watched very many of my videos, you've probably seen me talk about them before, and that's because they really believe in the content that I'm making and what I'm doing. So if you're looking for a place to host your Minecraft server, please go check them out. They offer really competitive pricing, server hosting all across the globe. They're opening up new data centers all the time. You can set up automated backups, and setting up a modded Minecraft server on there is literally just one click. You select the mod pack you want, and it sets the whole thing up for you. I've actually been using their servers for quite a while now to host several different Minecraft servers that I've been using. And my favorite part about it is how easy it is to actually upgrade your servers. You can go from having an 8 gig server, if that's what you initially thought, to a 10, 12, or 16 gig server if you find that you've got a lot more people playing on your server than you thought you initially would. Now, they already have incredibly competitive pricing, but to make that a little bit better, you can use the code JohnHall at checkout to save $5 or JohnHall20 to save 20%. Again, thank you so much, BerryByte, for being an awesome supporter of the channel. Let's get you back to the video. Okay, so first things first, we need to start looking at some recipes. To be completely honest, it would probably be easier to talk about what hasn't changed. So let's start and let's look through these. You're going to see a very consistent theme as we progress, and hopefully it makes you laugh the same way it did for me. So first things first, in order to make any of these boxes, you need some of these scented planks. The scented planks now require you to have all the modium nuggets in addition to your planks and your honey blocks, which I kind of think is a little odd. Like, it sort of restricts you from progressing in this way until you use the materials that all the mods team created themselves, which is a little bit interesting, but hey, they can do what they want to do. It's their mod pack, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't just stop there, right? You go with the core block for these beehives, which would be the modular beehive. In order to create that, you now need an omega upgrade, an adult bee upgrade, and 2 unobtainium ingots. So you have to have gone to the end, have unobtainium in order to even make one of these modular beehives, which basically just means that you're not going to use them until you're at least mid-game or late mid-game at the minimum, because nobody is going to get their first 2 unobtainium ingots and say, oh, I want to build a modular beehive with that. You're going to be making some armor, some tools, some weapons, and then upgrading those, and then trying to get these ingots automated before you even start looking at creating a modular beehive. But we're going to keep going. The next thing is the beehive structure box. This is used as a crafting ingredient for several of the others. That requires you to have a vibranium ingot, which means you have to have all 3 of the materials that are from the All the Mods team's mod. Next up, you have the alvery, which once again takes those structure boxes, which require you to have vibranium ingots, in addition to having vibranium nuggets on top of that. Next up, we talked about the feeder. That one still looks the same, with the exception that the structure boxes are now way more difficult to make. The overclocker's not that bad. It just has a productivity omega upgrade in it that you have to make. The treater is a lot of the same as well, with, again, like we said, the only difference being that the structure box now takes one of those vibranium ingots. And then the last thing we're looking at is the export hatch. This recipe is exactly the same. So some of these stayed the same, but it seems like they took the modular beehive parts that they felt like were too strong and just made them more difficult to create by making you have to get unobtainium, vibranium, and all the modium before you can even create them, which I may have my own opinions on, but who cares about that? Next up, the next thing that they changed were the electrodes. They made 3 very specific changes to these that are worth mentioning. you will notice that the netherite electrode now only gives a 2.25 times speed boost, which is substantially less than what they did before. In addition to that, in order to craft one of these netherite electrodes, instead of an ingot of netherite, you now have to have a full block of netherite, which again, in general, especially in all the mods 10, is not inherently difficult, but does mean that this is not an early game resource generation method. Finally, last but not least, you will notice that there are no other crafting recipes for these netherite electrodes in the smithing table, and that is because they have removed the ability to make the electrodes eternal. You can no longer make them eternal, which means you will have to constantly replace them if you want these to continue to work. Now, we're going to look at a way to do that with SFM here in a little bit, but just note, if you try to do this manually, it will be a pain. Even if you have some sort of auto crafting set up using AE2 or something like that, that allows you to create these, you're still going to have to go in and manually put them into each one of your overclockers, which is going to be incredibly annoying because there is absolutely no way to make them eternal anymore. Now, it is worth mentioning, because several of y'all mentioned it on the last video, that I missed a very important block in my builds that I created in the last video, and that was the treater. And to be completely transparent, I saw the treater, I saw what it did, and I tested it a little bit. I messed around with it. The only problem that I really had with it is how much honey it takes to keep running, because it takes a lot. It takes a ton. And so yes, you could use the treater to dramatically increase the amount of resources that your beehives are producing, but it will come at a pretty substantial cost. And unless you have some automated way to continually push the honey into the treaters, it becomes a big pain, because you can fill it up with like 6 stacks of honey blocks, and those are gone in like 2 or 3 minutes tops. But again, we're going to be looking at a way to automatically fill those and keep them filled using SFM later on in the video. So with that out of the way, those are the main core changes that they made to the mod to nerf it, to make it not nearly as strong as it was before. But let's go ahead and take a look at the 2 builds that we had last time, with the 1 Alvery and then this one here with the 3, and let's look at what their production is like. So like we talked about last time, simulated hydroponic bed is going to be producing somewhere between 7 and 8 diamonds a second. And again, we're finding that by using this, getting all of the diamond essence in, and all of that essence is going straight into this quantum crafter, which is crafting diamonds. And then we just have a throughput monitor here to see how many diamonds are coming into our system every second. Pretty simple setup. We have that exact same setup with all of these, only the difference is that we are sending all of the combs, the diamond combs blocks, into here, which we're using SFM to transfer into all of the heated centrifuges, and then we're putting it back into our system. So all we're doing is processing the resources so that we can see how much of the actual material we're getting. Now, setup number 1, using only the 1 Alvery with 5 diamond bees, is getting it's somewhere between 3 and 5 diamonds a second. It's really not making bee comb blocks very quickly at all, because there's not a whole lot of bees that are making them. Now, like we talked about in the last video, you do have the ability to use the time wand, speed this up, and it will start making these bee combs quicker. Now, it was mentioned to me that they were going to remove this ability, but they haven't yet. And so currently, as of the version that I'm playing on right now, which is 4.14, you can still do this. So again, somewhere between 1 and 3 diamonds a second, but you can tick accelerate that and create a lot more. Now, this setup here, where we had the 15 bees running, along with the Omega processing upgrades in here, we're getting somewhere closer to about 30 diamonds a second. Somewhere between 15 and 30, and that's because it's making a whole row at a time. It does fluctuate based off of what point in the process you're at, whether they've just created it and it's being processed, or if it's just sitting there waiting for more. But in general, it's somewhere between about 15 and 30. So this setup right here is still about twice what you can get out of a simulated hydroponic bed, so it's still pretty good. What I want to do next is very quickly walk through a new build, and then we're going to jump into my All the Mods 10 world, and I'm going to show you me actually building it in the world, how it works, and then how we can fully automate it using SFM. First things first, in the last video, we used structure boxes in the middle. That was a complete waste of space. What we're going to be doing in this build is we're going to be using the treaters. So one treater is going to go at the bottom, then we're going to be putting an Alvery on top of that, and then we're going to be putting another treater on top. From here, Dead in the center, we're going to be putting the modular beehive. I just like putting the export hatch over here on the right. You don't have to do that. In fact, it's probably easier if you put it here in the middle and the bottom. And then on top of that, we're going to be putting the feeder. Again, like we talked about, this is where your flowering block goes. The export hatch is where all your blocks will be coming out at. And then the modular beehive in the middle is where you can actually interact with the multi-block and put in the Omega upgrades. So from there, what we're going to do is we're going to be using one side, and we're going to be placing down 8 more of these modular alveries. In total, this build will have 9 modular alveries. Then we already have 1 treater at the bottom and 1 treater at the top. So we're going to go ahead and add 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally, we're going to be using these beehive overclockers. There should be exactly 8 spots left for these. Now, when you're building this in your world, make sure before you finish setting all of this up, that you open up the alvery and go ahead and put your 5 bees in here, because you will not be able to get to this block once this is complete. But once your 5 bees are in there, take your 8 overclockers, 7, 8, and place them all down like that. Now, there's probably a better way to organize this. I haven't found one out yet, and the reason that we're doing it this way is because the treaters on the top and on the bottom can be interacted with, and you can interact with the alvery before this is a completed multi-block, meaning that you can put your bees in the very center block before all of the rest of the blocks are here. From there, you have the ability to open this up, and all we're going to do is throw in 4 Omega productivity upgrades. That is effectively the entire build. However, what we're going to be ending up doing is surrounding most of this in SFM cables so that we can interact directly with each individual block. So let's take this design, let's move over to my actual All the Mods 10 world, and I'll showcase how to actually automate this whole thing using SFM and auto crafting from AE2. Man, it has been a while since I have been here. Dude, what a throwback. It's been months since I've loaded up this world. All right, so first things first, we're going to be looking at creating some actual patterns. Most of the patterns are pretty darn easy. The only thing that's worth noting, in case you haven't seen it before, is that the netherite electrode actually takes a netherite smithing template. And if you have one of these quantum crafters, you can throw that smithing template in here. You come in here and you set a limit to 1,000, then hit the enter key. Once it hits 1,000 of these, it won't make any more. So then you can go back, you can turn this on, and I have a bunch of them in here already, but you'll see it's not making any more, and it won't make any more until I drop down to 999, and then it'll just keep me at 1,000. The only reason I mention this is because the netherite upgrade requires a netherite upgrade in order to craft it, and that sort of recursive crafting is very difficult and doesn't work well in things like the ME requester or other things like that. So in order to keep this constantly going, you're going to want it in a quantum crafter. All of the rest of these patterns are actually pretty easy to make. And so we're just going to take them all and we're going to drop them right in here. Next, what I'm going to want to do is get myself a wireless connector, my wireless setup kit, an oversized ME interface. And we're just going to find some space in a place where we can actually build this beehive at. I think I'm just going to do it over here. So we'll set that down, we'll set the wireless connector down, then we're going to hook this up into our ME system. Now we have this interface over here that we can use. Next up, we're going to get ourselves a crafting card, and we're going to throw that into this oversized interface. Now, in addition to this oversized interface, you are also going to need some sort of a power source. I'm going to be using one of these ultimate energy cubes. We're just going to set it here. We're going to set a flux point next to it, and then we're going to attach it to our network. Turn power surge on so that it just stays full all the time. Next, all we're going to be looking at doing here is creating all of those same blocks we just talked about. So we're going to craft 1 of the modular beehives, 1 of the export hatches. We'll go ahead and get 9 of the alveries. We do 8 of the overclockers, 1 feeder, and 7 treaters. But real quickly, before I build this, what I do want to do is make sure to use SFM inventory cables as the ground for this. And we're also going to run these underneath both the interface and the cube. All right, from here, we're going to look at actually building this thing up. In the center, we're going to start with 1 of the treaters. On top of that, we're going to place 1 of the alveries. And on top of that, we're going to place another treater, beehive in the center, export hatch towards the front, feeder at the top. 2, 3, 4, 5 more treaters on the back. We're going to put the other 8 alveries back here. just to keep working our way around. And then finally, all of our overclockers, 5, 6 right there like that. So that is our completely finished modular beehive. We'll go ahead and grab 4 Omega upgrades to throw in there. Now, the interesting thing about this design is that you're going to need quite a few bees in order for this to work. Because you're using 9 alveries, you're going to need 45 bees in total. So for the sake of this video, what I'm going to be doing is just grabbing a bee that's easy to breed, so that way we can make them relatively quickly. All right, so I went ahead and created our 45 diamond bees. I had 2 hanging around already, and all of them have very high productivity. Like we talked about earlier, you will have to break this treater to get to the alvery in the center so that you can put 5 of the bees in here. Then we'll put the treater back down on top, and then we just have to fill up the rest of these. All right, so all the alveries are full now. We shouldn't have to touch those again. From here, what we want to do is make sure that we put a diamond block for the diamond bees into the feeder. Put that right there. And now the bees should be able to start actually producing bee comb blocks. They're not going to go anywhere. We can't do anything with them because we don't have anything else set up for this yet, but they should be able to actually produce resources now. Okay, so what we've done is wrote some pretty simple code here. And I'll include this in the Discord. I have a whole channel dedicated basically just to SFM code. And so what we're doing here is we are charging each one of the overclocks each tick, and we're taking any type of electrode and we're putting it into our overclockers every 20 ticks. We're putting honey into our treaters every 20 ticks, and then we're taking the comb blocks out of the export hatch and putting them into the interface. I haven't actually tested this last part here. There's a decent shot we actually have to change from the export hatch and end up putting some sort of like a barrel here in front for this to push into, and it'll pull out of there. But we're going to try to see if we can pull directly out of the export hatch first. So with that out of the way, all we really have to do from here on out is label everything. We're going to start down here at the bottom because there's one block I'm not going to be able to get to easily. And that is going to be this treater that is located right here. We're going to label that first, then we'll put all of our SFM cable back in. All right, next up, all we're looking at labeling here is the battery, which is this ultimate energy cube, our interface, which is this guy right here, our overclockers, which are all of the blocks that have the little red face on them, and our treaters. Now we had the treater underneath. We should have a few more treaters up here. Double check and make sure you've got everything. And then finally, let's go ahead and label that export hatch just to see if this works. And then we will right click and push all of those labels to the factory manager. Now it does look like SFM can pull the combs directly out of the beehive, which is incredibly convenient because that means it'll go directly into the interface and we won't ever have to worry about this. Now, like we showed in this code here, we are going to need to, in our interface, have electrodes and honey blocks. Now, in order to do that, all we really have to do is drag our honey blocks in right here, set an amount to stock, which we're going to set to 100, and then do the exact same thing with netherite electrodes. Because we have patterns already set up to craft both of these things, and we have a crafting card in this interface, it will automatically keep crafting all of those items until it's up to whatever number we set it to. So I'll take one of these netherite electrodes, we'll throw it right in there, and as you can see, it'll start crafting them for us. I'm going to change this up to 16 just so it keeps a lot of them in there. We won't need a ton of these, but it will be very nice to have this fully automated so we never have to touch it. Okay, with that out of the way, I have left this open, but we are going to need to run SFM cables, not just underneath this build, but also touching any of the overclockers and any of the treaters. So all of those will need to be touching, and then we can just wrap this cable right here around. After recording that entire video, I realized very quickly that I totally forgot. Up on top here, there's another beehive treater. So not only do I need to take my label gun and label this top center treater and then push it to here, I also need to run cables to it. And then we should actually be done. So from there, I did mess up the code here. So there you go. You'll notice there's no errors here anymore. It's just running and doing what it's supposed to. And you can see all of these honey blocks are being pushed into all of our beehive treaters, making sure that they all stay completely full. Now, these beehive treaters are going to absolutely eat honey. They are going to take so much honey to actually keep full, so it doesn't surprise me that it's taking a little bit for that to actually happen. you will notice that we are making tons, and I mean tons of diamond combs, to the point where it maybe begs the question of if we should potentially look at doing this every 2 ticks instead of every 20. Now, as you can see, we are getting a ton of diamond comb blocks, but I'm not entirely sure what that equals out to as far as like actual diamonds are concerned. This is a fantastic way to automate this entire build, but I kind of want to see what we're actually producing from it. All right, so all we've really done here for processing is we've set up our interface. We put our max diamond comb blocks in here, so that way they're going to be coming out. We set up a factory manager. Basically, it's just taking power from the battery, putting it into the centrifuges, taking the combs from the interface, and then putting them into the centrifuges as well. And then taking from the centrifuges all of the output, putting it into storage, and then also the fluid comes back into the interface as well. All of this happens every 20 ticks, and we could make this faster if we wanted to. Now, I can already tell I'm making a ton because there are a ton more in my IMI system now than there were before. I'm just going to go around and double check. It does look like the treaters stay full of honey blocks all the time. All of our overclockers have these electrodes in there. They are using durability, but they will be replaced as soon as they're broken. And all of the overclockers also have full power all the time. The only thing I can think is that the diamond comb blocks may not be exported as quickly as they necessarily could be, simply because it's having to perform that task every 20 ticks. So, in order to make that a little bit faster, is putting a timer pointing towards the factory manager, setting this to 2 ticks, and then inside the factory manager for that task, which would be exporting from the export hatch to the interface, we are going to switch this instead of every 20 ticks to every redstone pulse. So we're going to switch both the fluid and the item export to that. We'll click done. And then now, when blocks or items come in here, it should be exported substantially more quickly. Yeah, that's a ton quicker. It is absolutely cooking through all of that. So what it looks like it does is it doesn't increase the frequency at which the bees produce comb blocks, but what the treaters and the electrodes seem to do is dramatically increase the volume of what gets produced each time something does get produced. Because that is a lot of diamond comb blocks being all produced at once and then nothing. Which is going to make it a little bit difficult to see an accurate number on the throughput monitor, but it looks like while it's processing, it's about 1,000 diamonds a second, which is absurd. And then while it's not processing, it drops down to as low as maybe about 700. Well, I mean, that says 1,300. And so while it may be taking a lot of electrodes and a lot of honey blocks, if you have those to spare, which you probably should, you can get an absolutely insane number of items simply by using a setup like this. Now, like we talked about before, they did talk about disabling the tick acceleration for this. However, currently, that has not happened. And so just as a little bit of an extra final bonus, this is the fastest setup that I can find that'll produce a very substantial amount of diamonds for you very quickly. It's absurd, it's overkill, there's no reason you should ever need it, but it's there and you can do it. And if you set it up like this with SFM, it's fully automated. However, you can make it even better by tick accelerating it. And basically it will pull out full stacks of diamond comb blocks as fast as it possibly can. And then if we come over here and also tick accelerate the SFM and all of these heated centrifuges, first of all, it's going to lag the heck out of my game. But second of all, this number right here is going to start going up like crazy, like actually insane numbers of diamond production just using a little bit of time fluid, having this modular beehive and all of these heated centrifuges set up exactly like I do now. Now, once again, like I talked about, I'm going to have this SFM code right here, along with this SFM code right here, available on my Discord in case you're interested, so that you can use these and set them up for yourselves as well. But to be very clear, my verdict on this is pretty straightforward. The simulated hydroponic beds will give you about 7 diamonds a second. The best setup from my last video gives you somewhere around 30 diamonds a second, which is still pretty good. The best setup that I can find possible with modular bees seems to give you somewhere in the range of about 1,300 to 700 diamonds a second, which is absolutely insane, and even with all the nerfs is completely busted. So there you have it. That is a fully automated modular beehive that you should never have to touch again, that will automatically produce you over 1,000 diamonds a second, or whatever other resource you want to put in there, without any need for user intervention. So yeah, the mod's still pretty busted, even with all the nerfs that the All the Mods team put in place. Now I need each one of y'all to comment one of two things. Number one, like we talked about earlier, were these nerfs justified? What are your opinions on them? What are your thoughts? Number two, did I miss anything in this video? Is there a way to actually make this beehive even more crazy by choosing some different configuration? I'd love to know your thoughts, what you figured out, what you've tested. So leave those in the comment section down below. Don't forget, you're special, and I'll see you guys in the next one.